all know the story of the Headless Horseman, right? Well, that's what we're going to say today in the legend of Sleepy Hollow. A man named Ichabod Crane lives in a town called Sleepy Hollow as a choir master and a school teacher.
Today, class, we will be learning about ancient Greece.
He realizes one day that one of his students, Katrina Van Tassel, is very beautiful. Her father was Baltus Van Tassel, a successful farmer.
Bullseye.
Ichabod was amazed by the wealth of their family, the size of their house and their farm. Ichabod wants to marry Katrina for her beauty and for her family's wealth. Ichabod enters the house of the Van Tassels, continuing to be amazed by the marvel of the house. He soon realizes that the father of Katrina will do anything to protect his daughter. He also remembered the toughest man in the whole town also wanted to marry Katrina. His nickname was Brom Bones. Since it was more unlikely that Ichabod would get Katrina, he made his advances towards her subtle and quiet. Ichabod had no experience with women. He was unsure how to win Katrina's love. Brom Bones became aware of Ichabod's fondness of Katrina. There became a rivalry between them. He even trashed Ichabod's schoolhouse. A Negro man invited Ichabod to a party at the Van Tassels. He borrowed a horse from a Dutchman to go to the party. The horse was old and sick. He finally arrived at the farmer's castle, and he saw Brom Bones riding on his mighty steed, Daredevil. As he enters the party, he begins to see marvelous Dutch desserts, donuts, cakes, and pies. After he ate, everyone made their way into the hall for a dance. Ichabod prided himself on his dancing. Everyone watched him dance while Brom Bones sat in the corner, clearly jealous.
Pack it up, pack it in, let me begin. I came to win, battle me, that's a sin. I won't ever slack up, punk, you better back up. Try and play the role and you're the whole crew will act up. Get up, stand up, come on, throw your hands up if you got.
The attendants at the party began to share superstitious stories about ghosts and apparitions they had seen around Sleepy Hollow. Their favorite story, though, was about the Headless Horseman. Brom Bones told a story of how he raced one of the apparitions for a bowl of punch and beat him, but then the apparition vanished. Everyone seemed impressed. Ichabod started to leave, dismal because he still did not have Katrina to himself. The stories he had heard that night began to pop into his head as he approached the very place where the stories had been placed. He remembered the story of Andre, who had been taken prisoner that very spot. attempted to run across the bridge, but his horse would not budge and seemed spooked. He saw something black and huge towering over him. He thought of Bronbones and began to ride his steed faster, but the man on the horse was just as fast as him. Ichabod turned to see the man and realized that he was headless. He saw that the man's head was being carried in his saddle. They reached the road which turns off of Sleepy Hollow, but his horse seemed possessed and turned the other way. He tried his hardest to outrun the horseman, but the horseman threw a projectile at his head and knocked him dead onto the ground. The next morning, the children arrived at the schoolhouse for school, but there was no Ichabod. People searched for his body, but they couldn't find it. There were rumors that Ichabod was still alive, that he had fled Sleepy Hollow. And Bronbones married Katrina, and every time that Ichabod was mentioned, he got a good laugh, making people think that he knew more about Ichabod's death than he let on. The schoolhouse became deserted, and the superstitious environment of Sleepy Hollow continued. So that's the legend of Sleepy Hollow. Glad to get you caught up.